Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about if you just bought your first baitcaster, or if you're having trouble casting your baitcaster you got for the first time, setting it up, anything like that, what you need to be doing, how to break down a baitcaster, all the setup of it, all the different components, what they do. We're going to cover it all in today's video so that you can have a more pleasant experience fishing with a baitcaster and catch more fish. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. All right, so first thing we're going to go over is how does a baitcaster work and the different components of the baitcaster and how those function. So the first thing, as we go through the baitcaster here, this first knob that you're going to have is your star drag. So that's going to control the drag on your reel. Depending upon how you like to fish, you can either crank that all the way down and just do max drag and use the thumb bar to actually play the fish when you have one. You can, if a fish makes a run at the boat, you can press the thumb bar and use your thumb to create drag and let the fish pull line as needed. Or if you like the reel to do the work, you can actually go ahead and dial that in. So I can back this off a little bit. And then I know that that's a little too loose, so I can tighten it up a little bit more and let it pull nice and smooth, and I know that's about right. So you basically want it to where you can just smoothly pull line out if you needed to, if you're gonna use the drag on your reel. For me, I like it cranked all the way down. I'd rather control the fight, not let the reel do the work, because if that ever seizes up, you might lose the fish of a lifetime. So that's just a habit I've got in over the years and practicing using that. The next component you're gonna have here, this is your spool tension knob. That is going to control the tension of your spool. So if you crank this all the way tight, not only is it going to be really hard to reel because it's compressing the spool like this, so as you turn the handle of the reel, I actually can't even do it, you can see how hard it is to turn that reel handle. And then when you push the button, no line comes out because it's so compressed that it has too much tension there. However, when we get to talking about how to actually set up your reel, that's going to be very important. But as you need it looser, you can back it off back towards you. For a right-handed baitcaster, it's different for left-handed, but you can back it off back towards you. And then as you do that, you can see it'll let line out now that there's no tension on it. So it's uncompressing on that reel, letting it flow a little freer. And when I push it, line comes out immediately. And it's much easier to actually reel. So that is your second key component of the baitcaster. You have your actual thumb bar here, which is going to be very important to cast. Basically, you push that down and you can cast, and then when you want to reel in, you just click your reel over and it'll lock it back in and reel your line in. You have your worm gear on the front here that goes back and forth, lays the line on the spool. That's not as, I mean, it's important, but like you can't really do anything to adjust that, just maintain it, make it be clean. And then on this side of the reel, the palm side, you're going to have two different things depending upon your reel. You might have one, you might have none, or you might have both. And they're going to be your braking systems on your reel. So my favorite kind is a magnetic braking system. So that right here is this little knob. You might see it as on Shimano's, it's a little knob on the bottom right here. On other baitcasters, it'll be a dial on the side, and it has a bunch of numbers from 0 to 1, 0 to 10, 0 to whatever it could be. And then there'll be a line that shows you more or less, and as you turn it around. So I can turn this to apply more pressure and turn the number up, or I can turn it back down and apply less pressure. That is going to be very important. That accounts for your human error. So if you make a mistake, you don't thumb bar it enough, you cast into a heavy gust of wind, something that you can't prepare for, that's going to save you from blowing up your reel, even if you have it set up properly. That I usually, again, we'll talk about here in the setup, but I usually put that right in the middle and leave it there. And then this reel has both, so I can open it up, and on the side here, there are what's called centrifugal brakes in there. So they're little pins that are usually on the reel spool, and you can flip them up so they're locked closed and they don't engage, or you can flip them out so they will engage. And what the centrifugal brake does is use centrifugal force. So when you cast, you're at the original cast, that's when your spool is spinning the fastest, because you're throwing that bait and it's pulling the line off really fast. As that bait gets out there and loses velocity, your spool will naturally slow down because it's reaching the end of the cast. So what these brakes do, when you fire it out there right off the bat, they're like wings. They'll flip out because of the centrifugal force, and they'll brush on the side of the spool to slow your spool down so you're not overspinning it and creating a backlash. And then as it gets further out, they'll fold back up and stop brushing on the spool to let your cast get just a little bit farther. I do like these as well. I use both in conjunction. The centrifugal brakes, if you can get a reel that has that, obviously that's the most important kind over the magnetic system because of how it works. It's going to create the resistance where needed, where magnetic brakes are always on. So if you have it on a 5, it's applying the 5 of pressure, whatever that value is, the entire way through your cast, where these will let you get just a little bit further cast because they're gonna fold themselves back up as they get out there. So that is the breakdown of the reel here. So now let's actually show you what to do when you put a bait on, get it all ready to go so you can actually go out there and cast. So right here, I have a Senko on here with an 1/8 ounce weight. I'm not actually gonna go cast because it's winter in Pennsylvania here and I'm not in the mood to go freeze outside, but we're going to show you how to do this so you can get all your stuff ready to go for the spring. This, again, the heavier the weight on your Baitcaster, the easier it's going to be to cast. So if you're just learning for the first time, my 2 recommendations: go buy a bulk spool of cheap Zebco, whatever, monofilament in like 14-pound test size from Walmart. Spool it up on there so you can blow your reel up a bunch and just cut the backlash out and start over. You'll learn how to pick them out over time, and it helps because you can save a lot of backlashes that way, but learn on cheap line. Don't go buy Tatsu fluorocarbon or something like that and blow up a $50 spool line right off the bat. You'll hate it and it won't be very fun. And then the heavier the line, or the heavier the bait, the easier to cast. So this 1/8 ounce Senko, probably not what you want to start with. If you are just learning for the first time, I used to buy like 3/8 ounce like dipsy swivel sinkers with the line tie on the top from Walmart. They're like $2, and I'd tie one of those on and just go beat it up in the backyard and learn how to cast like that. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to reel this bait all the way up to my rod tip, and then again we're going to start with our spool tension. So the first thing I'm going to do is tighten this as tight as it can go so that when I push this bar, no line comes out. And then what I'm going to do, while that thumb bar is disengaged, you'll have your thumb here to prevent this from happening, but I'm going to slowly back this spool tension knob off just until this bait slowly starts to fall. So if we're watching the spool here, I'm backing this off, and there it goes. It falls down and it lays on the ground and does not blow up your reel immediately. That is where you want to start with your very first Baitcaster. That's the most important step to keep from getting backlashes. You'll have to do this with every bait. So if you tie a 3/8 ounce weight on, that would work for a 3/8 ounce bait. But if you tie a 1/2 ounce bait on, you're going to have to change that again. So every time you tie a bait on, you're going to have to tighten it and then back it off until you get that perfect fall. Now, since that's just laying on the bottom or laying on the ground without backlashing, you can see I'm like borderline, like I'm not getting any line to come out right now. I could probably back it off just a little bit more, and there we go. It still lays on the bottom, no backlash. If you can get it to do that, that's going to be the best way to do that. You will not get the farthest cast. You're not going to go blow this thing 50 yards down the lake with that setting. That's not how it's going to work, but it's going to get you to learn the thumb movement and the motor skills necessary to do that one day, because you're going to have to back that thumb bar off even more. So now I've been fishing for 20 years and I've been using a Baitcaster almost that long. For me, that falls nice and slow, which is great, but what I'll actually do is I'll back it off just a little bit more, and when I push that, it falls much faster. You can see I overrun like a couple lines there, so like I gotta pick it out just a little bit. It loosens the line up just enough at the end there. Just that little bit is gonna give you a significantly further cast, but if you're just starting, you want it to slowly fall and land on the ground. Then you're gonna come over here, and if you have your centrifugal brakes, which I do, I'll open mine up, and you have to run opposing sides or else they're not going to work. So they have to be on opposite sides of each other if you're turning them on. So while this reel has 6, I can't turn 4 of them on. I can't turn 1 of them on. You could, it just wouldn't work as easy or as good because it's going to be putting pressure on an odd shape around your reel. So I do 3. I usually run half of whatever's in a reel. They'll usually be between 2, or they'll usually be between 4 and 6 in a reel. So if it's 4, I'll run 2. If it's 6, I'll run 3. And I'll put them on opposing sides or in a triangle shape. So if you're running 2, you can put the 2 across from each other on. If I was gonna have 6, I could put these 2 across from each other, turn them on, leave the rest off. 3, you could put it in a triangle shape. You just want it so that it applies even pressure around your reel. Close that up and forget about it. You never open that up again. I've never opened that up again. I did that the day I bought this reel. Haven't opened it up since. I actually can't even get it to close there because I haven't opened it up in that long. And then for your magnetics, again, mine, I like to put it 50% of the way. So if it's a 10, I'll put it at a 5. If it's a 6, I'll put it at a 3, somewhere in there. Whatever the number is, divide it in half, put your magnetic brakes right about there to start. So now your reel's perfectly set up. If it falls, touches the ground just fine, and you have opposing centrifugal brakes on, about half of them in the reel, so 6, I got 3, all in a triangle, and then I have the braking on a 3, you could go throw this in your backyard and not even touch the spool. You probably wouldn't even backlash it when it touched the ground. Maybe a slight overrun. But then you can practice using your thumb to actually stop the bait as it's going. And then as you get better, back off your spool tension. That's all you really have to touch. I will never touch these brakes on this side of the reel ever again unless I'm fishing on a super windy day. I'll bump up the magnetics just slightly, maybe to a 4 or a 4.5. Or if I'm on a scale of 10, I might bump it up to like a 7. That's about it. And then I'll back it back off if the wind dies down. But I won't touch any of these ever again. I will only use the spool tension knob from that point forward to gauge what size bait I'm throwing and make sure it falls how I need it to fall. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you're looking to buy your first Baitcaster, check out this video right here. I did a video talking about what you should be looking for, what's the best Baitcaster combo to get for your first time, and it'll break all that down. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.